Welcome back, my friends. Today I'm going to teach you something extremely important about coffee. If there's one thing that you need to learn, one thing that you need to know about brewing coffee, it's this. And it's called the ratio. Technically speaking, it's called the extraction ratio. And this is where most people are like, see ya, sounds too technical for me. And I understand. People are sleepy in the morning, they just want to get something that wakes them up and go. But here's the thing, coffee doesn't like to be just mangled up and created. It actually is a very um, delicate substance to create. It's a liquid that requires precise measurements. So, what I always like to say is that you have to consider yourself a baker. You know, when you're baking something and it says half a tablespoon of baking soda, or a little teaspoon or a little pinch, it actually means just that. If you change the measurements, the texture and the whole thing is going to be blown off, and you're not going to get what you actually want to eat. It's going to taste different. So, it's the same thing with coffee. You see, if you put too much water and too little coffee, it gets diluted and it just becomes watery. But on the other hand, if you add too much coffee, the flavors just kind of they get jammed up, and you won't be able to taste them. It's like it's just congested traffic. And the best way to describe this is if it was a song and you're going too fast or too much, if it's the Fifth Symphony, if it's all condensed into 1 second, it's just going to sound like one big note, and you won't be able to hear the actual melody. So it needs to be stretched out. And so coffee needs that ratio in order to find that point in the balance of the water and the beans in which the melody of the beans sing just right. Now, this ratio is called the golden ratio. And the Specialty Coffee Association of America calls it the golden ratio because it is the one that will kind of fit most coffees, and that is it's 1 to 15 or 1 to 18. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that for every unit of water, you're putting so many units of coffee, right? So it helps you determine how much coffee to use when you are making X amount of coffee. So where you're making 1 cup, 1 pitcher, 2 cups, it helps you essentially find out exactly how much coffee to grind or how much coffee to pour into your coffee machine, whatever the method is. And the amazing thing when you start actually using the ratios is that you find out that if you make it 1 to 15 or 1 to 16 or 1 to 17, it's drastically different. So different that you could almost be thinking that you're drinking a different coffee. So if in the morning you just grab what most people like to do, hey, I'm just going to grab a tablespoon and just throw it in there. It's like 2 tablespoons, off it goes. Well, you're very likely going to end up with a coffee that one day is too strong, one day is too light, one day is kind of so-so. And that's not the point. You want your coffee to be always perfect. You want your coffee to be consistent so that you can go out and make your dreams come true. You don't want to start one day with coffee that's just not right because you're not taking care into these measurements. And of course, this tablespoon, your tablespoon, this tablespoon, they're all kind of different. So the amount of coffee you're putting will change. So there's no point in following recipes that kind of tell you the tablespoon approach. So I'm going to teach you how to find this ratio in the simplest of ways. But before I do that, I'm just going to say, don't be intimidated by this. Do take the time to figure it out because it will change your life. And regardless of the coffee that you use, it's going to make everything much better. Now, of course, you do need something, which is an equipment, and that is a scale. This scale is less than $10. Got it on Amazon. I'll put the link below if you're interested. But it could be any scale. And I measure in coffee, you usually measure in grams because it's kind of more even and it helps you get to the numbers quickly. So that's what we'll use for today's presentation. So here's what we'll do. I'm gonna go straight into it, and I'm gonna show you how I make 1 cup and how do I determine this ratio. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna grab one of my favorite cups, and I'm gonna find out how much water fits in this cup. Now, a standard cup, American cup, is about 10 to 12 ounces. So that's something also to pay attention to when when you read measurements and it says to make a cup of coffee. Well, is it this kind of cup? Is it this kind of cup? What is it? So you have to find out exactly how much fits in the cup that you drink to every day. All right. So I'm going to put it right here, and we're going to do it in a very simple way. First, we want to figure out how much coffee do I need to make. All right. So I'm going to simply put my cup here, turn on my scale, it's at 0, and then, I'm just going to add water and find out exactly what the number is. All right, so I'm seeing already here that basically it's going to be 300 grams to fill this 12-ounce cup. So that's 10 ounces basically. And now that I know that, I simply divide 300 by 15, and you end up at 20 grams. So that's how I know how much coffee I need. So then it becomes very simple. Then I grab, if I have whole beans, I just put it in there. And guess what? There we go, 20 grams of coffee. And so that's exactly what I need to make 1 cup. So keep that in mind. If you have a big container and you divide by 15 the total amount of water that you put in, and you're going to end up at whatever number that is. Like I said, if it's a liter, it's going to be 67 grams. So the math is always a little bit tricky to put in your mind at first, but then the number begins to make things simpler, because then you can simply always create the same cup of coffee regardless of how many cups you're making. So if you invite a friend over and you're going to make 2 cups, then you can still do the coffee exactly as you like it, and it's going to come out perfectly. So don't be afraid. Go into it, invest in the scale, take time to make a great cup of coffee. So it's an act of self-love. You're watching yourself put some love and intention into your beverage. And if you're making coffee for someone else, well, that's a great thing to have to teach someone else and pass it on, so that we don't stay in the rock ages of bad coffee. That's the whole point. We don't need to stay there. And we have everything that we need now to make amazing coffee. And you definitely do not need to go to a coffee shop to get some barista to make you this amazing cup. You can do it, and you should do it yourself, because a lot of love went into making these beans. These plants took a whole year to make one little fruit that has 2 little seeds. The sun, the rain, everything went into that, and it was roasted, it was dried, it was all these processes were done so that you could get that specific flavor. So now you have to do your part and respect the beans and the process. And if there's anything that you can learn from me, it's the ratio. And I'm here for you. If you have any questions about the method that you use at home, you're a little bit unclear about how much you should use, please reach out to me. I would love to help you as a subscriber figure it all out for yourself. It's very easy to do, and once you get it, you'll be in another galaxy, and you'll impress all your friends, and everything will work out. So that's the class on the coffee ratio. There's more in the email, and I'm there for you. So go into that world, and thank you, my friends. Until next time.